To our top story now, and this crucial meeting today between the federal government and the states over the National Energy Guarantee. Joining me live is the Energy Minister, Josh Frydenberg. Minister, thanks very much for your time. How far are you willing to go to get a compromise here with the Labor states?
Well, I'm confident that at today's meeting, the federal, state and territory governments will agree to move forward with the National Energy Guarantee. We had a very constructive dinner last night, and there was a broad appreciation, Kieran, of the importance of the National Energy Guarantee, of our responsibilities to deliver lower power prices and to increase the reliability of the system, and the importance of integrating energy and climate policy. So while some of the states maintain some of their concerns with the design, there is broad understanding of the importance of the guarantee, and today we can move forward.
The Victorian government and basically the lead Labor government has said they want a number of commitments, some amendments, including that the emissions reduction targets be reviewed every 3 years instead of the 4 years as planned, for it to be set by regulation, not legislation, which would enable a much easier changing of those targets, and that they should never be increased, that the targets should only ever be increased, I should say, and never go backwards. Now, the Minister says that they are the bare minimum. Are you willing to look at some of those demands today?
Well, our position has been, Kieran, that those demands, those issues relate to what are responsibilities of the Commonwealth Government. They relate to the emissions target and how it is set and how it's reviewed. Now, Australia is the signatory to the Paris Accord, not the state government. So it's very important that we continue to maintain that as Commonwealth responsibility. In relation to regulation versus legislation, it's important to understand that the companies themselves that own the generation assets need a degree of investor certainty with relation to the targets. You can't just flick a switch from 26 to 45% and think that that can happen overnight, bearing in mind the huge consequences it has for the companies. So we believe legislation, not regulation, is the way to go. And indeed, the Labor government in Victoria, when they put in place their renewable energy target, decided to go down the path of legislation, not regulation. And so too did the federal Labor government when it was last in office, when it legislated the renewable energy target in 2009 and 2010.
There's been a lot of focus on the Labor governments who've been critical. The WA Labor Energy Minister, though, said quite positive remarks this morning, saying, "I remain upbeat. The energy guarantee could yet provide the certainty the energy sector so desperately needs. It could provide the nation the mechanism to deliver emissions reduction in that sector." You must be encouraged by that sort of language, and obviously, by the sounds of it, the dinner last night went beyond some of the political posturing ahead of today's meeting.
Well, I think that's true. I think there's a degree of public commentary, and then there's a different sense that you get from the private conversations. And certainly the states, whatever their political hue, they recognise the importance of having investor certainty and delivering lower power prices. Now, the National Energy Guarantee was put together by the independent experts. It's been supported across the board by the miners, the manufacturers, the farmers, the small business community, the energy consumer groups, the charity organisations, and indeed even the renewable energy sector themselves.
Have you still got your party room behind it?
Loud and clear. I do believe that there is strong support in the party room, and my colleagues, Kieran, as you know, have been briefed themselves by those stakeholders. Those are the companies with big energy bills. Those are the companies that want to maintain their job creation in Australia. And they are telling my colleagues, they are telling the state governments that the National Energy Guarantee is a positive economic reform that will deliver lower power prices and, importantly, increase the reliability of the system as well.
You've been under intense pressure over, on another matter, the grant that was given to the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, a charity that's been caught in a political scrap, and not because of its own doing, because of the government's process or lack of process in coming up with a $400 million plus grant. Why don't you, as an olive branch to the critics, say, OK, we will embed a CSIRO expert or some other expert as part of this process, as part of the spending, formalise that to make sure that the spending is appropriate and basically to quieten the critics?
Well, the foundation is actually made up of some of Australia's foremost scientific experts, including the former Deputy Chief of the CSIRO's marine area. In fact, the current chairman of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority is on the board of the foundation. The former CEO of the Australian Institute of Marine Science is also a member of the foundation's team. This is an organisation, Kieran, that Anthony Albanese described just a few months ago in Parliament as a reputable organisation. This is one that Tony Burke, as Labor Minister for the Environment, gave money to when he was last in office. This is an organisation who has been a partner for state and federal governments in reef adaptation, reef resilience building and reef programs.
And the question goes to whether they've got the capacity to spend it, and how do you come up with that's such a huge donation without some sort of process?
Well, firstly, my department has made it clear in their Senate committee submission and on their website that the government's guidelines with relation to grants have been complied with. That's the first thing. The second thing is there is a 100-page partnership agreement between the federal government and the foundation, which is public, which details the compliance, the monitoring, the reporting, the governance arrangements. That is really important to understand. The Australian National Audit Office can follow the money. We would welcome that scrutiny. But when you go to the quantum of this contribution, $443 million over 6 years, this is because the Turnbull government has invested more in the reef than Labor ever dreamed of doing. When we came, but it's important, Kieran. When we came to government, we had inherited a situation where the reef had no long-term plan, that the reef was on the UNESCO in danger watch list, and there were 5 dredge disposal projects planned for the marine park. My predecessor, Greg Hunt, banned dredge disposal projects in the reef marine park. He got it off the in danger watch list, and we put in place the Reef 2050 plan. We are getting on with saving the reef.
I know you've got a big day ahead. I appreciate your time as always. Thanks, Minister.
Good to be with you.